Welcome back to another Sunday Reset. I'm sure by now you all know that I love my Sunday resets, and I've been so encouraged that you do too. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Monique. I'm a mum of three, and both my husband and I work full time. On a Sunday, I shop, prep, and cook meals to help reduce the pressure of each night after work. This is everything that I made last week, and I will show you my fridge to show you what we had left over at the end of the week. With the cost of groceries these days, I hate throwing anything out that we haven't used or eaten. So I have found by planning meals, using what needs to be used up in the fridge, freezer, and pantry, and sticking to the plan reduces waste and also saves us money. As a family of five, I budget $350 a week to cover all meals, including breakfast, lunch, snacks, kids' lunches, and dinners. This budget also includes household and cleaning items, toiletries, and nappies. This week I placed a click and collect order at Coles and spent $322.89 there. I had to grab a couple of items from Woolworths and spend $12.30 at that shop. I also got our favourite bread from Baker's Delight for $10. So our total spend for this week was $335.19. The budget breakdown will be listed in the description below. As soon as I get home, I unpack all of the groceries. If I've placed a click and collect or a delivery, I check over everything to make sure that it's all there and also up to my standard. If I'm not happy with the quality of the fruit and veg, I contact the shop and they normally give me a credit on my account. Once I've unpacked everything, I move on to putting away what needs to go away. I keep out what I'm about to use and I start washing my fruit and veg. Once they are soaking, I grab out all the other items from the fridge and pantry. I have a very organized fridge and pantry. This helps the family to see what there is to eat, but it also helps me when I'm writing my shopping list as everything is clearly labeled and laid out so I can easily see if I need to replenish something. I do my planning on a Friday or a Saturday night and I write all my list to shop on the Sunday. I always look at our schedule and commitments for the week to come, and this week I have some later finishes, and as a family we're actually quite busy, so this week I have made more dinner meals than I would normally do. This week for dinner we are having chicken pesto gnocchi, 1-pan baked fajitas, beef bolognese with bocconcini and basil, Nando's chicken and rice bake, green Thai chicken curry. We're going to have leftovers on the Friday night, and we're having loaded beef nachos. So today I'm making the chicken pesto gnocchi. I'm also making the 1-pan baked fajitas. I'm also going to make the Nando's chicken and rice bake. I'm going to make the beef bolognese and the beef also for the nachos that we're going to have on the weekend. And I'm going to freeze both the bolognese and the nachos and defrost them later in the week. When I do have busier weeks, I also like to prepare breakfast and lunches for me to take to work. This week I made baked chocolate and raspberry pancakes. For this recipe, makes 5. I do 5 eggs, 350 grams of vanilla yogurt, 350 mils of almond milk or your milk of choice, 300 grams of flour, 5 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 cup of chocolate chips, and 1 cup of frozen raspberries. I give all the ingredients a whisk and then I spoon them into individual glass bowls. I cook them in the oven at 180 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. I keep these in the fridge and warm up in the microwave each day and add a little drizzle of maple syrup. You can pretty much add any toppings that you like to these pancakes. Use the pancake recipe as a base and then add whatever you like. You can even do white chocolate and blueberry. You can just leave plain and have maple syrup. It's really up to you. It's delicious. Because I was having pancakes, my kids decided that they would love some pancakes for their lunchbox, so I actually made some baked pancakes for them as well. So I did a basic pancake recipe. This one had 2 cups of plain flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, half a cup of caster sugar. I placed all the dry ingredients in a bowl and gave that a mix. In a separate bowl, I added 1 cup of milk, 2 eggs, a dash of vanilla, and 1/4 cup of melted butter. Gave that a bit of a whisk. I mixed them together. With this one, try not to overmix it. I divided the recipe up between 2 baking trays, and on one of the pancakes, I added some chocolate chips and just baked them in the oven for about 15 minutes. The next snack that I made was another request from my daughter, double choc brownies, and for good reason, this is a family favorite. Melt 200 grams of butter, and then to a separate bowl, add 1.5 cups of plain flour, 3/4 cup of cocoa powder, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1 3/4 cups of caster sugar, 4 eggs, and 185 grams of dark chocolate. Mix all the ingredients together with the melted butter and place in a lined baking tray and then bake at 180 degrees for 45 to 50 minutes. They come out fudgy and delicious and molten chocolate. I sometimes dust a little bit of icing sugar to serve. Next, I made Anzac biscuits. If you want the easiest Anzac biscuit recipe, this is definitely it. So to a bowl, I added 1.5 cups of rolled oats, 1.5 cups of plain flour, 3/4 cups of brown sugar, and 1 cup of coconut. And then to a separate bowl, a microwave safe bowl, I added 190 grams of butter, 1/4 cup of golden syrup, and I melted that in the microwave. Once that was all melted, I gave it a stir and added 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda. It froths up a little bit, and then I add that to the dry ingredients, mix, and then I roll into bowls and place them on a lined baking tray. I like mine a little bit soft and chewy, so I cooked in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. If you like yours firm and crunchy, then cook for 12 to 15 minutes. This is honestly the easiest recipe. You don't need any cooking on the stove. It's all done in the 2 bowls and mixed together. Such a good recipe, and they are delicious. To help keep my time to a minimum, I'm constantly multitasking, so I clean as I go so that I'm not left with piles of dishes at the end. I don't really like having a lot of mess because I find it overwhelming. It's also really satisfying to put away the ingredients knowing that you're getting through all the prep that you have to do that day. Next, I made the kids some cheese and Vegemite scrolls. This is super easy and is literally 3 ingredients. So it's puff pastry. I had a couple of sheets left over from last week, so I did puff pastry. I spread some Vegemite out and just put some grated cheese over. I rolled it up and then cut them into like little scrolls, and I did a basic egg wash on top just to give it a bit of a gloss. Now you can sprinkle some sesame seeds on as well. My kids take these to school in kinder and there's a sesame seed allergy, so I can't, but they are really nice with some sesame seeds as well. Again, just bake this in the oven that is set at 180 degrees and bake for about 20 to 25 minutes until golden and crispy. Now that all the snacks were in the oven cooking, I started on the dinners. I started with the baked fajitas. I sliced 500 grams of chicken breast into strips, 1 red capsicum and 1 yellow capsicum, 1 red onion, and then I added a drizzle of olive oil and some fajita seasoning. I was trying the Mingle brand fajita seasoning. You can either buy the packet fajita seasoning or you can make your own spice blend. Either way, both taste delicious. I just went for a quick and easy option of using a spice blend already pre-packaged. I underestimated how much I was actually making, so I divided it over 2 baking trays and placed it in the oven, again at 180 degrees, and I cooked that for about 45 minutes. I moved on to making the pesto for the chicken pesto gnocchi. I made the homemade pesto this time, but I have made this many times with store-bought pesto. Either is great, and if you want a quicker meal, by all means, just use store-bought. By this portion of the cook, I'm starting to multitask many meals, so at this stage, I toasted the pine nuts ready for the pesto, but then while they were toasting, I spiced some chicken for the Nando's chicken and rice bake. In a bowl, I added 750 grams of chicken thigh, roughly about 4 to 6 chicken thighs, 1 tablespoon of paprika, 1 tablespoon of Cajun seasoning, 1 tablespoon of dried oregano, and a drizzle of olive oil. I mixed and coated the chicken in the spices. Then I add that to a heavy bottom skillet and browned on both sides. It doesn't need to cook all the way through. It does the rest of the cooking in the oven. I then remove the chicken from the pan. I then dice 2 red capsicums and 1 brown onion. I add those to the same skillet. I add 250 grams of mushrooms and 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. I mix all that and soften the vegetables for a couple of minutes. It also helps to deglaze the bottom of the pan. Once the vegetables are nice and soft, I add half a cup of Nando's sauce. You can choose based on your spice preference. I add hot, but you can choose based on what you would like. I add 1.5 cups of washed basmati rice and 3 cups of chicken stock. I give it all a bit of a stir, and then I add the chicken back to the pan and I just nuzzle it down into the rice and stock. The rest of the cooking will be done in the oven. I have this again set at 180 degrees and I cook for about 45 minutes until the chicken is cooked and the rice is tender. Next is another family favorite of ours. This is my beef bolognese with bocconcini and basil. I start by finely chopping 1 onion. I then heat some olive oil in a heavy bottom cast iron pot, and I add the onion, 4 cloves of garlic or 3 tablespoons of minced garlic, a teaspoon of dried chili flakes, and I add 1 tablespoon of Italian herbs. I add 500 grams of lean beef mince and some salt and pepper. I brown that off, and then I add 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, 1/4 cup of tomato paste, 1.5 cups of beef stock, 2 tins of crushed tomatoes, and give that all a stir, and then I let that simmer away for about 30 minutes or so. While the bolognese is developing in flavour, I've decided to start on the beef for the loaded beef nachos for later on in the week. To make the beef for the nachos, I just added 500 grams of lean lean beef mince, and then I added 1 diced onion, 1 grated carrot and zucchini for hidden veg, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and 1 cup of beef stock. I let that simmer away until the sauce thickened a little bit. This is actually one that I'm going to freeze, but I want to make it ahead of time just so I can defrost it and add it. It's going to be a really quick, easy meal. I'll just add it on top of some corn chips with some guacamole, some sour cream, and lots of cheese, and the kids are going to love it. I'm now back to making my pesto. So to a blender, I add half a cup of toasted pine nuts and 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, and I blitz that up a little bit. I add 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, some sea salt and pepper, and then I add 2 cups of basil leaves, and I drizzle in about 1/4 cup of olive oil, and then I just blitz that until smooth. I add 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and then blitz that again. And then that's it. That's the pesto made. To make the rest of the dish, I cut up 2 chicken breasts into cubes, season with salt and pepper, and I cook that in a heavy bottom skillet until browned all over. I add 200 grams of cherry tomatoes. I add the pesto in and about 150 mils of cooking cream. Allow that to simmer for a couple of minutes, then I add the cooked gnocchi to the dish. Give it all a stir to coat everything in the nice pesto cream. Add a little bit more Parmesan cheese and stir that through, and that's that meal done. What you saw me making off to the side was I was just spicing some chicken. So I used 2 chicken breasts and I cut them in half to make them a little bit thinner. I then sprayed a little bit of olive oil on and added some Cajun seasoning, and I placed that in the air fryer to cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to be using that for my lunches for the work week, and I've made little salads to go with that. I take some of the cooked chicken in a container and a little side salad, and I place them in a wrap, and that's what I will have for my work lunches. I've only made enough for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Wednesday I'll just cook some extra chicken. And there we go, everything all laid out. That's everything that I made today. And then I place them in containers. As you can see there, I've got my 2 meals that I'm going to be freezing, which is the beef for the nachos and also the beef bolognese. I'll defrost them later on in the week to have those as meals. So I've got my meals covered for tonight being Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday. I've also got meals for later on in the week. And here's my favorite part, seeing the fridge all set up with nice home cooked healthy meals ready to start our week. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do love it, please subscribe and let me know what you love. And as always, I will be back next week with new recipes and a new Sunday reset.